Richard Smallwood, one of the biggest and most respected names in gospel music, has passed away. He was 77 years old, and reports say he died from complications related to kidney failure. And now, just weeks after his death, he is being honored in a way that has caught national attention. Because this tribute didn't happen inside a church building, and it didn't happen at a private memorial. It happened on Capitol Hill. And in today's report, we will tell you exactly what happened at this Capitol Hill ceremony, who led the event, which major choirs performed, what the Senate resolution was about, and why Richard Smallwood's legacy is being recognized at such a high-profile level. According to reports, U.S. Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock led a public ceremony on Capitol Hill to honor the legendary gospel singer and composer Richard Smallwood. Warnock was joined by Senator Tim Scott, the Howard University Gospel Choir, and the Metropolitan Baptist Church Choir. The event quickly became a major moment because it brought together political leadership and gospel music in the heart of Washington, D.C., with one clear purpose: to publicly celebrate Richard Smallwood's impact. The ceremony was described as a tribute filled with music, faith-based reflection, and formal recognition. And it wasn't only symbolic, it also included official action. Warnock and his colleagues introduced a bipartisan Senate resolution to honor Smallwood's contributions, recognizing not only his influence in music but also his wider impact on people and communities. In simple words, this wasn't just a performance event. It was a formal tribute, backed by government recognition. And that bipartisan element stood out immediately. Because in today's political climate, lawmakers from different sides rarely come together so easily. But Smallwood's legacy was significant enough that the tribute was framed as something above politics. One of the biggest highlights of the Capitol Hill ceremony was the musical performance. Choirs performed Richard Smallwood's legendary song Total Praise, a composition that is widely known even outside traditional gospel circles. For many people, Total Praise is not just a hit gospel song. It is one of the most powerful worship songs ever written. And hearing it performed at Capitol Hill made the tribute even more memorable, because it placed gospel music directly into one of the most important public spaces in the country. During his remarks, Senator Warnock focused heavily on Richard Smallwood's background, his identity, and the institutions connected to his journey. Warnock reminded the audience that Richard Smallwood was a proud Howard University graduate, and while highlighting that connection, he referred to Howard University as the Mecca. That statement wasn't casual. It reflected the role Howard plays as a major center of Black excellence, education, and leadership, and it connected Smallwood's musical greatness to his academic and cultural roots. Warnock also honored Smallwood's connection to the Black church, calling him a son of the Black church, a musical genius, and a giant of the gospel music world. Warnock said that Smallwood's songs helped carry people through hard times, pointing to the reason why his music remained so important for decades. This tribute wasn't only about celebrating awards or career achievements. It was about recognizing what his music meant emotionally to people. And now, to understand why Capitol Hill paid tribute to him in this way, it's important to understand who Richard Smallwood was. Richard Smallwood was born in Atlanta in 1948 and later grew up in Washington, D.C. He fell in love with music at a very young age. Reports say he learned piano at the age of 5, and soon after he formed his first gospel group, showing early talent and direction. After that, he studied music at Howard University, where he earned a music degree. Later, he formed the Richard Smallwood Singers, the group that helped shape his signature style and gave the gospel world some of its most powerful choir arrangements. Throughout his career, Richard Smallwood earned 8 Grammy nominations and received numerous prestigious awards. His success didn't come from one song or one viral moment. It was built through years of consistent musical excellence. And even though he was known as a gospel icon, his influence extended beyond the gospel genre. Smallwood earned respect from major artists across the music industry. One of his most famous works, I Love the Lord, gained even more recognition when Whitney Houston recorded it for The Preacher's Wife soundtrack. That soundtrack introduced Smallwood's songwriting to a global mainstream audience and showed how his gospel compositions could carry deep emotion, even in commercial projects. Richard Smallwood's influence was also honored by Destiny's Child. In 2007, they included Total Praise in their a cappella gospel medley performance, which became one of the most talked about moments of that year. These tributes from major stars helped prove something important. Richard Smallwood's music didn't stay inside one community. It reached the world. And that is why his death, and now this Capitol Hill tribute, has drawn attention far beyond traditional gospel listeners. Reports say Richard Smallwood died from complications related to kidney failure at the age of 77. After his passing in late December, tributes continued to grow, and the Capitol Hill ceremony became one of the highest-profile events honoring him so far. The participation of the Howard University Gospel Choir and the Metropolitan Baptist Church Choir was especially meaningful, because Warnock specifically highlighted Smallwood's deep ties to Howard University and Metropolitan Baptist Church. So their presence wasn't random. It represented the places and communities linked to Smallwood's legacy and helped turn the tribute into something more personal and historically connected. And for many viewers, that is what made the performance of Total Praise hit harder. Because it wasn't just a choir singing a famous song. It was a tribute from institutions that had real connection to the man behind the music. The event also stood out because it happened on Capitol Hill. Usually, Capitol Hill events are about legislation, national policy, and political debates. But this time, the focus was on culture, community, and music. And for a moment, gospel music was treated not just as entertainment, but as something worthy of national respect. The Senate resolution introduced during the tribute also added official weight to the moment, showing that Smallwood's contributions were being recognized in a formal way. So the message coming out of Washington was clear. Richard Smallwood's legacy mattered. Not only to church choirs, not only to gospel fans, but to American cultural history. And that is why this tribute has become a major story. Because it shows how one artist's music can outlive him and still bring people together, even in places where unity is rare. Now the story continues from here. More tributes are expected, and people across the country are revisiting Richard Smallwood's songs, sharing clips of Total Praise, and reflecting on what his work meant to them personally. And while his passing marks the end of a life, the events happening after his death show that his influence is far from over. Richard Smallwood was not simply a singer. He was a composer, a leader, and a defining figure in gospel music. And now, with a Capitol Hill tribute led by Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, his legacy is being honored at one of the highest public platforms in the nation.